Good morning, afternoon, or evening, folks, and welcome to Cast of All Trades, the show where we talk about developing skills, exploring ideas, and following curiosity. I'm your host, Orion Siebert, and in this episode, I have the pleasure of talking to Kevin Palmieri, the CSO of Next Level University and the co-host of Next Level University podcast. In this episode, we talk about Kevin's journey, how he went from successful by all metrics to near suicidal, his journey back to a place of peace, and the lessons he learned along the way. This interview was the first time I spoke with Kevin, and immediately I could tell this guy was something special. He was a joy to talk to, and I hope you can get as much from this interview as I did. And if you enjoy interview episodes like this, then make sure to subscribe because there's more where that came from, and you aren't going to want to miss them. I believe that about covers it. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Kevin Palmieri. Kevin, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. I am excited, as I said behind the scenes, I'm excited to see where our conversation takes us today.
Indeed. So before we really dive into your story, can you tell me who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm Kevin Palmieri. I am the CSO and founder and host of Next Level University. We're a global top 100 podcast with 1,700 episodes. We just recently crossed 1 million listens and $1 million in our business. And I do an episode every day for that. So I identify as a podcaster, a speaker, and a coach. Those are kind of the big three for me.
Well, congrats on 1 million listeners, 1 million in revenue. Big numbers hitting there. Just congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
So I want you to take me back to the beginning. Where does your story start?
I was born and raised I was born and I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. So I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. So obviously that has played a huge role in the man that you see in front of you, figuring out what that means and overcoming the limiting beliefs and the self-worth issues that came from that. So that was early childhood for me. I feel like my family is different than a lot of other families. I don't have a dad around. We're struggling with money. Everybody else seems to live in houses and we always rent. What's going on with that? That was really early childhood for me. And nothing else really noteworthy happened. But one of the things that really shifted my life and my trajectory in many ways, Orion, is when I was in high school, I decided pretty early that I didn't want to go to college. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I just didn't think paying a large amount of money was going to help me figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I thought it was probably the opposite.
College is certainly one expensive way to, quote unquote, find yourself when you have to pay Uncle Sam usually a big bill at the end.
Yes. And I didn't have the money either. Nobody in my family had really gone to college, so we didn't know how to do the financial aid thing. I didn't really want to go. There was no pressure from my family to go. So I said, look, all my friends are going to go away. They're going to go to college. I'm just going to start working and I'm going to try to get a job and I'm going to start making money and see what happens. I guess right, wrong, or indifferent, I wasn't very focused on the future. I was just saying, all right, let me see what I can do now. So
it made sense at the time.
It made all the sense in the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like the right choice. So I got a job at a gas station and that was my first job. And then I job hopped from there. I was a personal trainer. I cleaned hospital floors and bathrooms, truck driver, forklift operator, all sorts of different things. You want to talk about trying a bunch of things and trying to get pretty good at all of them. I've had a lot of experiences like that because I didn't really have a degree. So it's not like I was really good at one thing and I was looking for a career in that one thing. I was good working with my hands. I was always on time. I was usually pretty good with people. And those were some of the skills that I had developed in order to get from one job to another job. So that was kind of my early to midlife, I guess we could put it.
All right. It's amazing how some very simple, like almost obvious skills can take us so far. Like I talk to people who maybe they've spent years and years and years getting PhD after PhD, and yet they still seem to struggle about trying to find their their path in life when it seems like it should be obvious. You have these masterful degrees that you've dedicated your life to. Why not pursue that more?
Mm.
And yet it's some of these most simple fundamental skills of show up on time, know how to talk to people, know how to bring a pleasant presence to the room or to the world that can really take us the farthest.
Mm.
So I want to ask you a bit about your downward spiral.
Please.
So when you were at the bottom, how did you break out of your downward spiral, and walk us through what that was like for you?
Yeah, so I eventually somehow in my early 20s got a job in an industry called weatherization, and I essentially went from making $15 an hour to $60 an hour. And I had that moment, Orion, where I said, all right, cool. Everything I did up to this point was the right choice. This is going to be my career forever. And if I do this right, I can actually make a really good amount of money, and I can be maybe financially free to some degree eventually. So I ended up getting this job, and I did that job for a couple of years. And if you were to look at me when I was in my mid-20s, you would look at someone who seemed like they had it all externally. I had this great job. At the time, my girlfriend was a model. I had just competed in and won a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be in. I'll never look the way I look then. I had this income. I had a new apartment. I had the sports car. I had all the things externally. But internally, I was depressed. I was anxious. I had zero self-awareness. I had no idea what I was really doing. I accomplished, quote unquote, a lot, but I didn't feel like I had accomplished a lot, and I wasn't super fulfilled. So my girlfriend ended up leaving me, and that was my initial rock bottom. Okay, am I broken? Am I lovable? I thought I was successful, but now somebody just left me. So that is success really what I thought it was going to be? And as much as I wish to say that that was the time in my life where I went introspective and I went all in on self-improvement, I did not. I thought to myself, if I go make more money, maybe that will solve more of the problems. Maybe I just haven't crossed the right threshold yet where if I make more money, these problems will disappear. So the next year, I had a real talk with myself, and I said, I'm going to make the most money I've ever made. And I spent the next 10 months traveling around the eastern coast of the U.S. because a lot of our contracts were in other states. And I spent those 10 months sleeping in hotels and being gone every single week. So every single week I was gone, living on the road, but I didn't care because I was making money, and that was in alignment with what I thought. So I got to the end of that year. I cracked open my final pay stub, and I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree, which for me, it was a dream come true. But I had another one of those moments where I said, well, I don't really feel successful. I don't feel any different internally. I'm still depressed. I'm still anxious. I'm still insecure. So I realized that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So in 2017, I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. And that's where this journey really started for me. I fell in love with podcasting. If I can talk into a mic and I can have amazing guests and deep conversations like this, my life would be amazing. But in the beginning, there's not exactly people lining up to give you money. So I had to...
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I had to keep doing the job that now I began to loathe. I've already reached the top. I don't want to do what it takes to have to get there again. And I don't want to spend any more time on the road. Every time I pack up to leave, I get more and more homesick. And I just don't think I can do it anymore. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job sites early, showing up late. I'm out. But I had to keep doing it because I needed to pay the bills. So eventually, my rock bottom basement moment was I woke up in a hotel room in New Jersey, which is like 6 hours from where I lived. Alarm clock went off. I sat up. I slid to the edge of the bed. Was lacing up my work boots as I had done 1,000 times before. And that morning, it was like there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station. It's just this noise, this overwhelming noise. And one of the things was, you're stuck here forever. You got lucky to get this opportunity. People like you do not get opportunities like this. Don't blow this. Do not blow this. If you did ever leave this job, what would your friends think? You make more money than all of your friends. There's a lot of significance there. What would your family think? I make more money than anybody in my family ever has. There's a lot of significance there. I don't want to let people down. And the biggest one for me, Orion, was, do you think you're going to be a successful podcaster? That's really what we're going to do here. We're going to go all in on podcasting. And it was in that moment where I thought to myself, well, if I just take my life, I'll take my problems with me. And I won't have to worry about any of that. I won't have to do any of the work. And that seems like the easy way out. I ended up messaging one of my friends. For some reason, I'm pretty good at asking for help, which I'm very grateful for. I messaged one of my friends. I told him what was going on. I told him the thoughts I was having. And he said a lot of things, but the thing that stuck out was, over the last couple of years, your awareness, hyper-conscious, your awareness has changed a ton, but your environments have remained the same. I think it's time for you to change your environment. So I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, and then I started this journey of being a very broke entrepreneur, trying to figure out how to do all these things and how to get good enough at everything along the way where I could be multifaceted and have different tools. The hardest part of explaining how things changed is because when I left my job, my mental health got infinitely better almost immediately. My depression and like my anxiety went away in different ways. My anxiety came back because I was under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure as an entrepreneur.
A different kind of stress.
A different kind of stress. I think that, it's a really good way to put it. So the things I did in the beginning, it was, one, I got rid of the biggest stressor in my life, which was my job. I know that's not realistic or feasible for everyone. Everybody circumstantially is in a different place. But after that, I went all in on self-awareness. I wanted to know, why am I triggered around certain people? Why don't I believe in myself? Why is my self-worth in the toilet? Why am I attracted to certain things? Why am I repulsed by other things? Why? And I call that the why phase for me. That was the first thing I did to try to get out of the hole, is I asked myself, why am I in this hole to begin with? And I had a very interesting understanding that I never had before, that the reason I am where I am today is not something that happened yesterday. It's something that happened. It's everything that happened along the way, starting with when I was a young man and a younger boy. So that was the first thing. It was the why phase. Why is everything the way it is? That was my start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much in your story that I would love to unpack, and we don't have time for all of it. But that last bit there's a saying that just sort of popped into my head that I've been talking about for years, that you are the culmination of every decision of every day that has ever led up to right now, of every decision ever made. And if you can take a step back and look at your life from that lens, it almost, like, you can almost separate out, like, you from the circumstances you've been in. And it's almost easier to take a step back and look at, these are the circumstances I had. I did the best with what I had. And it's almost easier to try to work out from there. Now that I know where I'm starting from, I can make a path to get somewhere better. Something else that you touched on early on was that you had achieved, like, success, quote unquote, in almost any metric that people would generally consider you were successful relative to your surroundings. How do you define living a successful life now compared to what it was then?
Yeah, now success is fulfillment. If I can go to bed at night and feel like I grew and I evolved and I added value and I contributed to something greater than myself, and I made progress towards an ultimate goal that I'm never actually going to achieve, that is success for me. And the other thing too is, I just want to be a good man. I want to be a good, principle-based, character-driven man. That is success to me. I have a deep belief that I am capable of achieving the things I want in life now, which I never could have said 5 years ago. But I have a deeper belief that I can actually do it while staying in alignment. And that to me is success. If I go outside of alignment to chase something that I want, that is not success. That's actually the opposite for me. That's a failure. I'm not here for that. I want to stay in alignment as much as possible. So it really is growth and contribution, adding value, and just putting my head on the pillow at the end of the night and saying, look, Kev, You stayed in alignment today. You were the best version of you, whatever that means, on that given day. And you should be proud of that. I think now success is being proud of what I'm doing, who I'm becoming, and what I'm creating more than materialistic things. Now, I still like materialistic things. I like cars. I like nice things. But I know they're not going to change the way I feel about myself. That's not why I get them. It doesn't make me feel any different. That's not what it's about. That's more a celebration than anything else at this point.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of a quote, I think it's from Jim Carrey, where he says, I wish everyone could fulfill their wildest dreams so that they realize they won't fulfill them personally. It's something along those lines. I definitely butchered that quote. But it's so true. There's a concept called gold medalist depression, where you see gold medalists in the Olympics, people who have dedicated their lives to mastering this sport, this physical feat of strength or dexterity or whatever you want to call it. They spend their lives dedicating themselves to becoming the best in the world at this one thing. Then they reach the top of the world stage. They have their gold medal in the hand. They raise it up high. They cry. They have this large spike of dopamine. They feel amazing on top of the world. And the next day, they want to die because they've accomplished everything they ever want to do. Like, that was their dream. What do you do after you fulfilled your dream?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that as you were describing success, I may have just heard it myself, but I feel like you mentioned something that was you work towards an unattainable goal. You work towards something that's unattainable. Is there a reason why you set an unattainable goal that you want to work towards? Why unattainable versus many attainable goals that you build on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I didn't. A lot of my goals are the byproducts of having a business partner who is a visionary. You want to talk about like the reality distortion field? My business partner, there's nothing impossible for him. He does not believe in impossibilities to a detriment. Nothing is impossible for that man. So, Orion, a lot of the goals I have set are byproducts of the goals that he has set and byproducts of the belief that he has helped me have in myself. I think it would be not super constructive for anybody listening to the way I talk about setting goals. It might not be great for them because I do agree with you. I think setting small goals and then getting the success of that small goal and then setting a little bit of a larger goal and then a little bit of a larger goal, I think that's a really constructive way for most people, 1,000%. Now, I would say because we're optimizing more for fulfillment than anything. That's really what it is for us. Is we're never going to get the award that says we're the best podcast, or I'm never going to get the award that says I'm the best podcaster or the best husband. That's never going to happen. But what I can do is I can try to better my best every day. And I think it's that. And I guess it's part two. A lot of our goals are based on growth, not accomplishment. I want to grow as much as I can. So the only way really to set a goal that's going to force me to do that is to set a goal that I can never get. Right? Okay. Because if I do get the gold medal and that was the goal, then what? Then I guess I have to find something else, or I have to set another goal. But what if the gold medal is a byproduct of a bigger goal that you ultimately can never get? Very paradoxical, I suppose, but that's kind of the thought behind it.
Mm-hmm. It's more about the overall trajectory of, are you getting closer? Are you approaching light speed as you're going towards this one certain goal that maybe is totally unattainable, but due to the fact that you're moving towards that thing slowly, faster and faster and faster and faster, it's like there is satisfaction in that compared to you can only move so fast as you're going up in the rankings in something, that even if you get to number one, I guess you accelerate so fast you run into a wall of, this wall is your goal now. You crash into it. There's not much. You can technically set goals beyond that of, sure, we hit number one, but what if we want to get 2 million in revenue? What if we want to get 2 million listeners? Or you can set your own other arbitrary goals past that.
Yeah.
But it's still, I don't know. It's hard for me to totally put this into words, but I think I get what you're saying.
It's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. And that's why I say for a lot of people, because this is the thing, I'm most likely never going to retire. I'll be working most likely till the day I die, because we're genuinely trying to impact the world in a very, 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 very large way. Everybody's trying to impact the world in their own unique way, but we're trying to build a world-changing business and company and culture. So it's just going to take more for me. I'm going to have to do so much more than than I did to make the six figures. That took me a year, and after that, I could have said, all right, cool, I accomplished the goal. Now I can ride off into the sunset, for lack of better phrasing. But I think it's the thought of, if you want to lose 5 pounds, it's a really good goal. If you feel like you have 5 pounds to lose, that's an amazing goal. Then when you lose that 5 pounds, maybe you set another goal of, okay, I'm going to maintain that. But if you said, I want to be the most athletic person on the planet, everything you do is completely different. Mm-hmm. You're most likely going to lose the weight and gain muscle, or run faster, or be more flexible. So the requirement, I think, dictates the standards. And then the standards dictate how close you get to the goals. So it's just, instead of aiming for the goal, I'm aiming for the growth that is required to accomplish certain things. And then hopefully I get better, and then I can reset the standard, and I get better, and I can reset the standard, and just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so often we hear about goals versus systems, where some people say, oh, it's all about the goals. You have to have goal focused first. Or other people say, no, it's all about the systems. I don't care about what your goals are. You have to have good baseline systems. But you can't have one without the other.
Fair.
You can't have systems that are just sort of in place that lead to nowhere. Otherwise, it's not really a system to accomplish anything. On the other hand, if you have a goal, you're never going to achieve it unless you have a system to get there.
Yeah.
So it really is that balance between, do you have goals, and then do you have a system that you're actually going to do to get that and maintain it and achieve it? Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you did bodybuilding. My brother also did bodybuilding for a while, so I watched that experience, and it's fascinating to me to see his goal is to be a number one bodybuilder in our local area, and watching him dedicate his life to doing that was fascinating. Totally out there, totally different. You have to live life intentionally if you want to get those sort of results. And part of that intentional living that can really help out is your environment. How did you shift your mindset and environment to, how did you find the environment to match what you wanted to go and do?
I asked myself a simple question. And again, simple, not easy. Are the people in my life the best from my past, or the best for my future? And when I say future, I mean the things that I am moving towards in terms of what I think are alignment, and the things I'm trying to accomplish, and the person I'm trying to be, and all that. I'm very blessed, Orion, where my business partner I went to middle school with, my other best friend is an entrepreneur and someone who's trying to get better every single day. I already had the people around me. I think maybe I'm a unique case where I was genuinely the biggest thing holding me back. Everybody else believed in me way more than I believed in myself. I was the block. I was the obstacle. So I just had to admit what I wanted, admit that I wanted a different result, admit that I was willing to put in the effort, and then try to just stay as humble as humanly possible, and just try to be a student. You could teach me so much. I could learn so much from you. You have such different experiences than I do. But it requires humility for me to take that in. And so that was a really important thing for me, is understanding that everybody knows something that I don't. Everybody knows a lot that I don't. I might know stuff that other people don't. So that was a really big step for me. And then from there, it was trying to figure out how to add value into someone else's life so they would add value into our life. If you do something for someone, regardless of the outcome, you never know what can happen. We've had some amazing mentors, and a lot of that is because we were very interested in what they were doing and interested in how we could help them, not super interested in what we could get out of it. So one of the ways we were able to grow and evolve and get a more growth-minded community around us is just trying to help people. And when you serve, people are willing to serve back. So that was a really big piece. But honestly, it was me. I was in the way for most of my life. So one of the big keys was just saying, Kev, you do deserve growth, and you do deserve to have amazing people around you. And if you don't believe that, nobody's going to believe that for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There are so many people that I see that they often choose actively perhaps maybe, I don't know if active or unintentional is the right way to put it for this case, but I know a lot of people who I've known them for years and I can see the potential in them. I can see that they can go so much farther, they can do so much more, so much better, but they don't change their environment. They don't change the people they've stayed around because it's comfortable. People don't like being uncomfortable. And there's this, how can we maybe try to step out of our comfort zone a bit more to be more willing to step into this area of, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm going to try my best, but maybe it'll fail. Maybe I have to be all right with it failing. But how can we, in your opinion, step more into this uncomfortable area?
Yeah, it's again, it's a lot of it sounds simple, but it's not easy, or it sounds easy, but it's not as simple as it sounds. Ask yourself, would I rather be comfortable and stagnant or uncomfortable and growing? I'm at a very unique age, Orion. I'm 34, where if we're looking at like lines on a graph, there are certain people who are increasing and they're getting better and their business is getting better and their relationships are getting better and they're just becoming more. And there is the opposite, where some of the bad habits other people have and had through their early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s are coming back to start to bite them in the butt, unfortunately. And the delta between the two are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think one of the reasons that that's happening is because they're not being super honest with themselves of, well, it's going to get better eventually. It's going to get better over time. In another 5 years, things will be different. When in reality, if the trajectory is off in 5 years, it's going to be a lot worse than it is. Unfortunately, it's not going to get better unless we, to your point, intentionally make it better. So I would say sitting down and trying to be very, very, very honest with yourself and getting rid of all ego and all protectors and having that conversation with yourself of, look, is this going to improve if I don't do something about it? And would I rather be comfortable in misery, or would I rather be uncomfortable in growth? We all know consciously that it requires different ingredients to get a different outcome. We all know that consciously. We do. But if we don't believe it'll be worth it, we're not going to put in those changes. So I would say ask yourself 3 questions. 1, do I believe this change is humanly possible? 2, do I believe this change is personally possible? Can I do it? And the big one, number 3, that I think a lot of us, including myself, have gotten lost on in the past, do I ultimately think it will be worth it? Do I think it will be worth it to hire a coach? Do I think it will be worth it to do whatever this scary thing potentially is? If you don't think it'll be worth it, you're most likely not going to do it, because we're not going to make a payment for a promise that we don't believe in. So I think that's a big one. Will this ultimately be worth it if I do the uncomfortable thing?
Mm-hmm. I love this idea of you have to asking yourself and being really introspective about, is this worth it? Can I do it? Is this possible? But there's one thing missing there that I really want to dig into.
Please.
That's, what about the person who they are at rock bottom, where they don't see any light out, any hope. They don't think they can do anything. How might we? It's often hard for that person to break out on their own. I've seen that. I felt it personally. It's so hard to break out of that cycle on your own, and I don't know how I managed to, or how other people have managed to do that. Perhaps from an outside perspective, how might someone reach down to help them out? Or if you do have any ideas on how this person themselves can break free of this endless downward spiral, any tips or advice on how we might be able to do that?
Yeah, it's such a challenging thing, because circumstantially everybody's rock bottom looks different, and not everybody does have the same opportunities or options, which makes it super difficult. I would say 2 things. I would say find someone that you trust. And you could say, Kev, I don't really trust anybody. Find someone that you trust the most out of the people that you don't trust, and try to have a vulnerable conversation of where you are. Because asking for help, that's the best answer I can give, because that's what's helped me numerous times. I've been willing to ask for help because I already had vulnerability built up in those relationships. So that's one thing I would say. If you're totally on your own and you don't feel like you can trust anyone or be vulnerable with anyone or reach out to anyone, I would say start embarrassingly small. one of the things we hear often is take massive action. Do this, change your life. No. What is something that seems somewhat realistic for you? That is where I would start. When I was trying to start building confidence and kind of climb out of the hole, one of the things I would do is I would go to the store and I would try to hold eye contact with someone when I was walking down the aisle. That was progress to me. That's going to help me be more confident. Okay, let me try to have a conversation with this person at the checkout counter. To some people, they might hear that and laugh and say, wait, that was like your check of the day. If you did that, it was a successful day. 100%. 100%. So I think that's probably the best advice I could give is just do something embarrassingly small, because that's still progress. And we love progress as humans. We love it. We absolutely love making progress regardless of the size. That's the best answer I can give, because very similar to you, Ryan, I don't really know how I did it. I was surrounded by amazing people, and I have to give a lot of credit to those people. But I do know I started what for me was embarrassingly small. And that helped me build momentum, build self-worth, build self-trust, build confidence. So I think that's probably the best answer I could personally give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm very much reminded of Jordan Peterson's early on work, where he talked a lot about, for some people, just start with cleaning your room. Mm-hmm. And if that seems like too much, start with the sock drawer. Start with the smallest, the most minuscule thing that seems manageable, then build from there. It's this idea of direction over trajectory, where it doesn't matter how fast you're going if you're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the ladder you're climbing is, if you get super high in the corporate ladder, if it's leaning up against the wrong wall. It's like, sometimes it is those small, singular, individual steps that make the most difference. Not just for people who are at rock bottom, but even for people who just want to start something totally new. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I want to write a book, and 2 years later, they haven't written a word down, and they're still talking about this book they're going to write. It's this small, simple actions, the person who's willing to try something new, and even if they fail, it's a learning experience. Be able to shift that mindset of, this isn't a failure, this is a chance for me to learn, and a chance for me to try to grow. Because even if I fail, I learned, I change, I can try again. I have a saying that I read every morning of, get up, try your best, even if you fail, learn from it, try again. You don't fail unless you quit. That's it. Mm-hmm. And it's driven me to do so much more in my life than I ever thought possible.
I'm all for it. I have a tattoo that says never quit. So one of my tattoos says never quit. Now, I've been called out of like, well, what if you have a bad job and you don't want to do it anymore? Quit the things that aren't serving you,
yes.
But don't quit the things that are serving you.
Nuance. Always nuance.
Yes. But it's hard to nuance a tattoo. Like this is on me forever, so I got to figure out how to rebut against some of these claims.
You don't want a 10,000 word addendum for your tattoo going up your arm?
No, I'll get that on my back. That'll be like more information. You get appeal for more information.
Just add the asterisk by it, and then
yes.
Wonderful. So I know you've told your story tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of times. I want to ask, is there something that you wish people would ask about your journey? Something that you wish you could delve more into that no one's really talked about or asked about more of?
It's a great question. I don't think people really understand how little I believed in myself. It's hard to put into words that before every single podcast episode I did, like the first 150 episodes I hosted, I didn't think I was good enough, smart enough, a good enough speaker. I did not think I was good enough at all. I have gone through my life pretty much thinking I'm terrible at everything and I'm not smart enough and I'm not good enough. So I don't know if that would be a question that people would ask, but I like that because I don't ever want someone to look at me and say, wow, he's super confident. I'm the most confident I've ever been, but I don't know. I don't think I'm as confident as I should be based on all the things I've done. I think I should probably be more confident. I still have imposter syndrome in certain regards. I don't know if that'll ever go away. So maybe the question would be, regardless of where you are today, how many things from the past are you still working to overcome? Because I don't think people really ask that. Because we assume when we get there, they just kind of fade away, as I've been guilty of thinking many times in my life.
So how do you face that? When you were looking back now, you think back on those first couple episodes on, oh, they're so bad, and like you didn't have the confidence going into it. What was that? What was that like for you?
It was a battle every day. Every day it was a battle to show up and just to try to your point, to try to do my absolute best and not make a fool of myself. And like that really was, in the beginning, it was, Kev, you might have a big guest today. Show up, this is something I've tried to do, use your anxiety as a superpower. So if you're anxious about, then this is me speaking to me. If you're anxious about something, just over prep. Oh, you're anxious and nervous that you're going to not have enough questions? Have 30 questions and you'll have plenty of questions. So that's really what I did, is I tried to use my anxiety, my uncertainty, my fear, my lack as a coping mechanism to over prep so my biggest fears would never happen to me. That's really what got me through in the beginning. My first speech ever, I didn't think I was going to, oh God, I was terrified. I was sweating through my clothes, but it went super well because I prepped for like 4 hours a day leading up to it, to the point where I knew where I should be and the minute and second mark. It's like when I hit 13 minutes and 7 seconds, I should be here. So I went in and I felt terrified, but I felt competent. It went really well. My second speech, I didn't prep at all. I got an ego on me. I got a little arrogant. And Orion, my second speech did not go well. Mm-hmm. It was not good. I had the kids doing push-ups because I ran out of things to talk about. So it's like, let's just bust out some push-ups here. Because I lost the humility. There's something that, it's in one of the Jim Collins books. I don't remember which one, but it's something he talks about called productive paranoia. Productive paranoia is, well, this event's going to go really well, but what if it snows that day? Do we have like a contingency plan for what happens if that happens? Productive paranoia is, yeah, we have X amount of dollars in the bank, but we have to make sure that we don't get an ego and do stupid things because of that. So I think the best answer would be I employed or deployed productive paranoia long before I learned about what it was, because for me, it helped me feel safe.
How do you face imposter syndrome today?
I don't know. I just try to do it. This is a story I tell often because I can't think of a better one for imposter syndrome. I was going on a podcast last year, and we were getting ready to do the pre-call. And I had a moment where I researched the show, much like I researched yours. And this person was a doctor for NASA. This person was a space doctor. I thought that was like in the movies. I didn't know that was a real profession that people had.
I didn't know that was a real profession either. I feel enlightened now.
See? And maybe that's the next thing. Maybe that's one of the notches for you. Maybe space doctor is in the future. Who knows, right? But I had a moment where I was getting ready to talk to this person where I said, there's no way I'm supposed to be here. Something must have got mixed up. There's another Kevin Palmieri who's like, I don't know, a space doctor or something. Something's mixed up here. And I said, okay, when's the last time you felt this way? When's the last time you felt like you didn't deserve or you didn't belong where you're about to be? I had a podcast recently before that where I talked to a doctor of psychology, and I had the same thing. I said, all right, so the most recent proof we have that your brain is playing tricks on you is that. What's the most relevant proof you have? That interview went really, really well. It went better than I expected. Okay, so our recent and relevant proof, which is just hyperlogical, is proving to us the opposite of the way we feel. Let's give this a shot and see what happens. If it goes better than we expect, we'll have new, recent, and relevant proof. If it goes worse than we expect, then we'll have a lesson and we'll have something to look at and we'll have some feedback to pull from. So that's really what I do. I do recent and relevant proof. And usually that helps ground me in reality and it gets me out of the stories that I'm playing in my head. But I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think imposter syndrome is ever going to go away because I'm growing. And when you grow, you get different opportunities. And oftentimes the opportunities we get are the ones that we're not fully ready for. It doesn't mean we can't survive there. It doesn't mean we can't thrive there. We're just not necessarily ready for it. And going back to what we talked about earlier about comfort versus discomfort, I think that's why life is uncomfortable. When you're growing, you're getting opportunities that you never would have gotten. And then you got to say yes to those opportunities. And you got to see what that discomfort is like and then rinse and repeat that ever. So I think imposter syndrome is a good thing. I think it's a suggestion of growth. And I don't know if it'll ever go away. And I don't know if I want it to, honestly.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever thought about it that way, but it makes a lot of sense to me. For the longest time, I think it was Alex Ramosi who brought up this idea, or maybe it was someone else, but whoever it was, they would talk about overcoming imposter syndrome by considering everything you've done as a sheet of paper, and you would slowly stack up those sheets of paper. And at first, you'd be like, yeah, of course you have imposter syndrome. You don't have much evidence or proof that you can do this thing. But over time, as you do the thing more and more, as you do more podcast episodes, as you have bigger and bigger guests, as you go on to talk with space doctors, you add on those sheets of paper to your pile, and each sheet of paper is so minuscule, like no one's going to notice the change between one sheet and two sheets. But when you go from 10 sheets to 20 sheets, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, suddenly that undeniable stack of proof grows so that you can look back on it and say, actually, I can do this. Or maybe this new opportunity it's new, but it's similar to what I've done in the past. Like, I have a stack of proof to make me believe I can do this. Like, I'm probably the right person for this. But yeah, I don't know. I never thought about the idea of imposter syndrome being a good thing, of being a constant state of growth. So thank you for introducing that idea to me.
Of course. And that definitely sounds like a Hermosiism for sure. That sounds like something he would say. So it would make sense if it was him. I just expect it now. And maybe that was my coping mechanism. Maybe I want to make friends with the thing that I'm most afraid of. And instead of saying, I hope this goes away one day, I'm just going to say, like, I'm just going to learn how to coexist with this. And if it does go away, 2 thumbs up, that'll be cool. I just don't know if I expect it to anymore. And I think that can be empowering. I do. I think it can be more empowering than disempowering.
Mm-hmm. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. Mm-hmm. So as you come to fear imposter syndrome to some extent by always facing it and going into that cave, it's like you'll grow from it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's interesting just how the brain works. So tell me a bit about Next Level University.
Next Level University. Alan and I were both raised without fathers. So Alan's father passed away when he was 2 in a car accident. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet him until I was 27. And we have a very deep belief that if we had self-improvement in our lives earlier, our lives would look drastically different. I didn't start self-improvement until I was 27. And it took me wanting to end my own life before I ever had the necessity to do it. Alan was in a really bad car accident when he was 26. And that became his jump to leaning into self-improvement. So we decided, look, we're going to build a company that is based on self-improvement. It's based on getting a little bit better every day, like Atomic Habits, just a little bit better every day, a little bit better every day. And if we're going to talk about getting better every day, we're going to do a podcast episode every single day. Because if I can tell you it's easy to get a little bit better every day, the least of the things I can do for you is be on the microphone there every day trying to help you do it. So it started as a podcast that ended up being group coaching and one-on-one coaching, and now we have an entire business built from it. But the ultimate thought is level up your health, your life, your health, your wealth, and your love. That's really what we're trying to do, is holistically self-improve, not just grow the business, not just be in better shape, just improve the human every day.
Mm-hmm. So always, I'm definitely a proponent of self-help. Love it. It's great. So much is good in there. Definitely, is also a lot of fluff that,
of course,
like maybe not. But when someone is approaching this idea of self-help, and trying to approach some sort of success, how do you approach pursuing success? And in particular, what do you think you guys do differently that other people are misled by?
Yeah, I'm never going to tell you to set goals that scare you. Ever, ever, ever. Well, I did in the past because I think I was more ignorant and less experienced than I am today. I don't care what your goals are. I care more about the type of life that you want to live while you chase them. I don't want it to be the other way. I have literally told people not to set certain goals because it's not in alignment with their character, who they are, and what they value. So I think the simplest answer would be we are a really good mix of internal self-improvement, understanding yourself, self-awareness, traumas, triggers, relationships, self-belief, self-worth. We're that, but we also have the external. This is how you can be more productive. This is how you can make more money. This is how you can improve your body. I think it's the identity level that we like to start at, because if you don't understand who you are and what you feel you are, it's really hard to make any change. So I think the simplest answer, Orion, is we try to start from inside out. We have episodes that are just super, super, super deep about topics that I don't even know if you consider them self-improvement. You'd probably consider them mental health or philosophy, depending on what side you're on. We start internal and then work external, not the other way around. I think that's different because most other self-improvement, not all of it, but much of it, it's super motivational. It's super pie in the sky. A lot of the stuff looks really good on bumper stickers, but does not work in real life. That is not what we're going for. I would rather have a much smaller audience of people who are actually into real growth than a bunch of people who are just in it for the motivation. So I think that's probably the best answer I can give.
Absolutely. There's a pair of questions I love to ask people when I'm trying to help them work on their goals or work on what they're trying to do. The first one is, what do you want? And after they write that out, the second one is, what do you want to want? Because so often when people talk about, these are my hopes and dreams, they're talking about the physical things that they want, the sports car, the 10K a month business that they can work remote from anywhere in the world that works 100% of the time. Big, flashy, clickbaity YouTube letters, of course. And people almost always respond with the things that society expects of them, or the things that their culture, their group say, this is what you should want, or this thing's difficult to get, therefore it's valuable, therefore you should want it. Whereas if you do approach it from the inside out method, going, what do I actually want first? What do I want to want? We can start to really see, maybe I don't want to work in I don't want to work on, why can't I think of the name now? Get a penthouse in New York working on like a stockbroker floor or something.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what everyone tells me I should go and do. But I actually just want to go live in the woods for a while. Like, two very different lives, two very different paths. One you actually want to do, one is societal expectations or things that other people push on you. But it's again that intentional living of, we're not going to get there. We're not going to get to that cabin in the woods unless we actively make that our choice. Because if we don't set our own priorities, other people will set them for us.
Yeah.
So
I think that's another difference is I don't really know what you want. I can tell you what I want and how I got it, but I can't help you unless you know kind of what you want. I am of the belief that I don't want anybody to live like me. I don't think the way I live is the right way. I think the way I live is destructive. It's not healthy. It's just not. I like it because I like the process. That's an approach that I always like to take. Please do not hear me and the fact that I track X amount of habits and I do that is not suggestion. That is not suggestion, because unless you're willing to give up everything I've given up, you're not going to enjoy it. So I think that's very important, a very important point. I don't think my way of living is the right way. I think it's right for me. And I would rather tell someone, hey, do you think you might be like happier if you made $75,000 a year and got to see your family all the time rather than doing this job and making $1 million a year and never seeing them? Because that's okay. It's okay to want less. I believe that now more than ever, because your less might be more than your more was. And does that make sense? I don't know, but that's what I'm going with.
I think it makes sense. Absolutely. There's this idea that I hear so often that you probably experienced it somewhat while you were bodybuilding, where people might say, oh, I wish I had your body, or I wish I was like you. So often people say, I wish I was like this person. I wish I golfed like Tiger Woods. I wish I looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They want the end result, but they don't want what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
There's all this glitz and glamour about the end goal of the overnight success when no one saw them toiling away in their basement for 10 years, where perhaps, yeah, maybe you would be better just $75K a year job, spending like part-time, maybe spending time with your family, doing that instead. There's so much good that came from this conversation. I don't want to hold you up or run over time for
I appreciate
whatever else you may have going on later today. Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Where can people go to learn more from you, to hear more about what it is you do?
I would say after you listen to Orion's podcast, make sure you listen to his first always. You can check out Next Level University. We talk stuff like this all the time, so this is my jam, and this is why I love doing it so much. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. And then if you ever have any questions or anything you need, just shoot me an email. My email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I do my own emails, so I will see it. Anything, questions, comments, whatever it is, I'm happy to shoot you a response back.
Okay. Kevin, once again, it's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with a friend you think would like it, or share it on social media. It would absolutely mean the world to me, and it helps the podcast grow so much. With all that said, thanks for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.